emerge from my slumber, awaken from this spell. The ocean I've been under lifts me in its swell, leaving in the undertow sorrow and regret, breathing into life a sweetness I will not forget.
Good morning. Happy Easter. Thank you for those of you who are participating in our fun hat participatory day. Yay. And if you didn't get a hat, you can always get a hat after service, and we will have fun photographs just to show everybody that we love to have fun here. So if you couldn't tell, if you're new here, I really enjoy celebrations, and I really enjoy getting into the spirit of things. Now, Easter is one of those holidays that's I've taught a lot of different things about, because it's kind of one of those holidays where layers upon layers of different cultures, of different time periods, of different religions have piled all of this stuff on. Like, how come we have Easter bunnies and Easter bonnets, and then, you know, the cross and Jesus and the risen, and like how does that all go together? And I've spent a lot of Sundays talking about the earth-based traditions. But I haven't spent a lot of time in my history of being a senior minister speaking about the Christian historic aspect of Easter. Now, in this room, we have people who are Buddhists, we have people who are Sufis, we have people who are Christian, people who are Jewish. This is a trans-denominational community. And what we do is we teach science of mind here. And science of mind is the nature and the laws of the universe. And we teach how you can utilize the laws of the universe, or the way that God works, in order for you to live the life of your dreams. And every single religion teaches these same laws. And we know that when we come at this approach from the universal approach, that we can go into these different sacred traditions and take those meanings from them and put them into our lives so that we can live a sacred and holy life. And that's what this Easter is about. So I'm going to explore. I was brought up Methodist. I was raised Methodist, and I consider myself a Christian. But that doesn't mean that what I say is Christian is what the world says is Christian. Because when in my former belief system, I had to say that Jesus was my Lord and Savior, and that was the only way I could ever get connected with the divine. And for me, I believe that God is much bigger than one person or thing or idea or principle. And that's how I came into this teaching, when I got into the idea that I didn't have to give up my old belief system, which was that God is love, and that there is a Christ consciousness within each and every one of us. But then I could also explore all of these other religions. So I've been to Bali, I've studied Hinduism, I've definitely studied earth-based religions, I've studied Taoism and Buddhism, and I love the intersectional parts of those different philosophies. So if you didn't know, the Easter Bunny comes from not Christianity, but it comes from our pagan earth-based roots. And it's a time of springtime and a time of renewal. And of course, bunnies are great aspects of fertility because they multiply like rabbits, right? And so it's a time of year for each and every one of us to go and become introspective on, what do we want to multiply in our life? What do we want to create? What do we want to manifest? What do we want to plant the seeds for? Because if you're looking at the cycles of life, there's seasons and there's cycles. And the winter time is the time when I would call also the time in the cave, but it's a time when things are fallow. It's a time when things appear not to have anything going on. But it's during that time, the winter time or the time in the cave, when I'm going to say the divine feminine principle is working. It's when the trees are getting deeper roots during the wintertime. And it's a time when everything is being taken apart, the chrysalis, right, for the butterfly, when all the little pieces are coming apart in order to come back together to make that next evolution for the butterfly, but also for us. And so whenever we're looking at this Christian tradition of talking about the life of Jesus, this is something that each and every one of us can overlay on top of our life. We can talk about how the life of Jesus is a metaphysical or metaphorical approach to what's going on in our own lives. And so it doesn't matter if you're Jewish. Jesus was a Jew, by the way, if you didn't know that. And it doesn't matter if you're a Buddhist. All that matters is that you look at this life of somebody as a symbol for how you can live your own life. So on Good Friday, which I don't know why they call it good, but it's pretty sad. Good Friday is the day when Jesus is crucified. And then he gets put into a cave. So he's dead. And then on the third day, which is symbolic, we have a lot of threes in symbology in religion. On the third day, he rises up from the dead and he's resurrected. And so this is a time period when you get to look at what is it in my life that I want to be resurrected? How do I want to resurrect myself into this new level of expression and experience? So today's topic is The Lord is My Shepherd. Where humanity and divinity meet is our monthly theme. So the 23rd Psalm, from which we get our title, The Lord is My Shepherd, encapsulates faith and certainty that has stood the test of time. And it's also a powerful tool for each and every one of us to grow through the challenges of our personal and collective lives. So metaphysically, because we are a metaphysical teaching here in Science of Mind, we teach about metaphysics, which is that which is beyond physics. So you've got the physics, which is the laws of the universe, right? The physical universe. And then metaphysics is beyond the physical laws of the universe. So it goes beyond that place. And in metaphysics, we understand whenever we're talking about Lord, we're talking about Christ. Now, a lot of people think that Jesus and Christ are like one and the same, but really the Christ concept was around way before Jesus came along. The Christ concept, I was trying to think of a way to kind of describe it so that you could really get it. Imagine that you're living for 1,000 lifetimes. And it's you. So here's Bobby. Bobby, you're living 1,000 lifetimes. Here you are, 1,000 lifetimes from now. You know, imagine the wisdom and the evolution that you'd have, right? Now, imagine 1,000 times more. And 1,000 times more. And imagine the highest possibility of you that you could evolve into. That's the Christ. And it's beautiful because it's kind of like an acorn. We did the acorns a little while ago, but like an acorn it has contained within it the oak tree. And that's exactly what the Christ is. The Christ is like the oak tree of our life. And it's contained within each and every one of us. And the reason why people called Jesus, the man, Jesus the Christ, was because he had embodied his connection with the divine to such a degree that people could see what was possible for them. And that's why they celebrated him as the Christ. It doesn't mean he was the only Christ. Everybody here is the Christ. Everybody here has that Christ spirit within each and every one of us. It's just, are you going to open to it? Are you going to embody it? Are you going to allow it to evolve through you? Are you willing to take it on? Because you don't have to. You could always remain the potential. You could always just be the seed. But the curious thing about being the seed is in order to grow, you got to go in the soil. In order to grow, you got to go in the soil. You got to go into that dark space, that place of darkness. And it's a place where the manure is piled on. It's the place where, like it's dirty. It's a dirty place. But that's the place that nurtures us and causes us to grow into that divine potential. And so the story of Jesus is a story of him going into the cave and that place of darkness, and then coming back out and rising up in a new form, in a new way of being. So I wanted us to read this 23rd Psalm. So if you would kindly stand. Now I know I changed the gender format, so for those of you guys out there, sorry, not really. So go ahead and stand, and let's read this together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. She maketh me to lie down in green pastures. She leadeth me beside the still waters. It restoreth my soul. It leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And so it is. Have a seat. So I'm going to go through this line by line. And again, many of you here are probably like, oh my gosh, this is some of you came from a Christian background. You're like, this is just like going to church at home. Except we have a little bit of different context here, because I'm going to take each one of these from the Psalms. Now, the Psalms are one of the most famous passages in the Bible. And you may not know, but there's actually, according to the Schofield Study Bible, the 23rd Psalms is in the middle of a trilogy. So the 22nd Psalms is about the suffering. The 23rd is about redemption, and the 24th is about triumph. So we can emphasize each one of those processes, and we can overlay them in our life and realize that each one of us is on a hero and a heroine's journey. That each one of us has different things going on in our life, and that we are taking these on as part of who we are, and how we can use this as a model for us to live a life that is successful and prosperous and joyful, and not to let the obstacles bring us down. So the Lord is my shepherd. Lord is another word for Christ. I shall not want. Ernest Holmes says, and Ernest Holmes, he studied the Psalms. He has 42 mentions of the Psalms in the Science of Mind textbook. So he talked about the shepherd as a loving presence, guarding, guiding, and keeping. Now remember the oak tree possibility? The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. The Christ is my shepherd. It is within me. That potential is within me. I shall not want. It's already here. And we can access this aspect of ourselves by doing the spiritual practices that we teach here. We teach classes, we teach different spiritual practices. You have meditation, you have prayer, circulation, connection, community, education. All of those are different spiritual practices, and those are ways that we can go in and we can connect with that Christ on who we are. He maketh me to lie down, or she maketh me to lie down in green pastures. She leadeth me beside the still waters. So green pastures represent a relaxation in the midst of abundance. Still waters indicates the river of life in which there is no conflict. Now imagine that. We must relax in the midst of our abundance, where there is no conflict in our life. The next line, it restoreth my soul. It leadeth me into the path of righteousness for his or her name's sake. Basically, it's the opportunity for us to let go. Our soul cannot be restored by the river of life unless it lets go of the past, and it discovers a new future going in around it. And when we follow the pathway of righteousness, and righteousness means right useness. I know that whenever I was first heard the righteousness, I thought of the ego, right? But it's not about the ego. It's about rightly using that divine connection in a way that supports ourselves and the entire planet, all of humanity. That's right useness. When we take the name of the divine with us or as us, then we're in alignment with the great harmony of the universe. And just so you know, Ernest Holmes said that for every death, there is a resurrection. This is the way of life. This is the way of evolution. So God is ever evolving. The infinite universe is ever evolving. I don't care if you call it God or if you call it the quantum field, whatever you call it, it is ever evolving. And in order for it to evolve, aspects of it have to be released and new aspects have to be taken on. And so each and every one of us may have these times in our life where it's time to release and let go of aspects of ourselves and time to embrace the newness. And this is the time of year for each and every one of us to embrace the new idea, to plant that seed of possibility, because everywhere around the planet, there are Easter services going on, and there's a consciousness of abundance. There's a consciousness of rising up, of reinstilling that within us. And we can utilize the power and the energy of this collective force in the universe to access this in our life and have it multiplied abundantly. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. I've read this before at memorials, at funerals a lot. It's not any death, though. Every beginning is an ending, and every ending is a beginning. And I think that I'm getting more and more clarity as to how that's happening in each one of our lives. Whenever my dad died, he died in 2009, I was in ministerial school. And it was the most difficult thing as yet I've ever had to deal with. Because I was and am very much in love with my father. And you could call me daddy's girl. I'm also mommy's girl too, but I'm both. You can get that, right? But I was the only girl in the family. I have a brother too. And it was unexpected when my dad died. I didn't get to go see him. And I was fortunate because I was in ministerial school, even though I was a mess. I was surrounded by ministers, which was super helpful. And the thing that I really got is that death, the death of somebody in my life was a new beginning. And it took me a long time. It's okay to grieve. I mean, I'm still grieving my father, his physical form, because I still feel him. But whenever somebody leaves this planet, there is a new birth, a new life. And I became a different minister. I became able to really understand deep grief. I never would have been able to steward those of you who are in the room that I've been able to steward through the deep grief that you've experienced if I hadn't really understood that level of despair and sadness. And so because of his death at that time in my life, it transformed me and it created a new person within me. And each one of us, as we have maybe a death of a job or a pet or a relationship that is also a rebirth for each and every person in here, whatever aspect of your life. You may have all these aspects that are going really well, and there may be some aspect of your life that is dying. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Now, what is evil? Evil is living backwards. Live, evil. It's living backwards. And oftentimes evil just means that we're disconnected from our source. We're reacting or behaving or going into fear mode. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Remember the Christ within. Thy rod and thy staff comfort me. The rod was used by the shepherd to protect himself and his sheep. But it refers to the staff of the law of good. And the law of good is the law that good is ever expanding in our life. And whenever I take this death and I recognize and know that because of the death, I'm constantly guarded and guided by the law of good, that I can step into this new way of being to know that there is something that is preparing the way before me, that is keeping me safe through this process as I'm ushered through it. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Imagine our enemies. Now, what would you consider as an enemy? What do you think an enemy is?
Someone who hurts me.
Somebody who hurts me. Do you hurt yourself, Kathy?
Ooh.
Do you say mean things to you? That's your enemy. Our fears. Yeah. Everything outside that somebody's doing to you is also something you're probably doing to yourself. So it prepares a table even in front of your enemies, allowing these enemies to not be rejected because it's a part of yourself, right? But you're taking it in. And you're loving all aspects of thyself. I'm going to start speaking in Bible talk or something. Thyself. Where did that come from? You know, I used to do theater, and the hardest thing to do, I don't know if you've ever done like a Shakespeare play or seen a Shakespeare play. Like if you forget your line in a Shakespeare play, you have to make it up and pretend like you're speaking Shakespeare. It's really hard. Just want to say. So... because we dwell in the house of the Lord. Now, the house of the Lord, here we are. Now, we are in the body of God. The infinite everything, the great creator, created everything, and it created it of itself. And so we're we're hanging out we're like little cells in the organism of the body of God. Each one of us with our own divine purpose, with our own divine, idea, with our own unique individualized expression. And we're not outside or disconnected from. We're residing in the house of the Lord. We're in the house. You can't go anywhere. You can't be disconnected. You can't be outside of the divine. You are in the divine every single moment. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Now, in ancient times, it was part of a welcoming, a blessing, to anoint the forehead with oil. It was an honoring of the person. And they also had an honoring of the feet, anointing the feet with oil too. Which meant I give the best of what I have and I anoint you as a holy person. And so each and every one of us are anointed with that oil. You're already anointed with that oil. My cup runneth over. It's as if the divine is pouring that, whatever it is, wine, water, whatever it is, just pouring it in your cup, coffee, if you're Kathy. And it runs over. There's so much pouring into your life that your cup runneth over. And that gives the opportunity to realize that no matter what, we're anointed with a deeper understanding, and we're divinely guided to knowledge and resources that we need to face the obstacles that are in our world, to face our own fears, right? Our own voices in our head that are taking us down, that are tearing us down. Goodness will always be available to us. There's a presence that goes within us, and it is the all-conquering power of the law of good. So no matter what, if you made a mistake, I made a few mistakes in my life. Anybody? I made a few mistakes, yeah. It doesn't matter, because the law of good is always in my life. And what I put my attention on increases. So this entire aspect shows us, I love this last line here, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Goodness, mercy. I want some goodness. And mercy. Mercy is not just, it almost like on one hand I get that context of like, oh, mercy. I think in our society we get to this place where again it's like an egotistical thing, like, oh, I'm gonna give you mercy, or I'm gonna give you forgiveness. It's not like that. It's kind of like, if I made a mistake, then I'm instantly forgiven. And it's not the infinite that needs to forgive me, because the infinite didn't even judge me. It's myself. So surely I have mercy in myself and my life. So I wanted to talk about this today because we're studying the book of the month. I know it said, it had another book in our newsletter, but I changed it because I really like this book, especially because it's Easter, Rising Strong. I mean, come on, Brene Brown, really, really good, really, really good. And one thing that I want to really get to you today is to have you think about maybe something that is you're willing to let go of, something you're willing to crucify, something you're willing to let die today. And then we're going to have, in a few minutes, we're going to have a communion. And a communion is a coming together in union, co-union, come together in union. And we're going to have this opportunity to release any ideas that have been limiting us from being our fullest and greatest self. And I went to, whenever I was in ministerial school, I went to the Gnostic church. Has anybody been there? It's in Mountain View. Oh my gosh, that's really cool. So they have a Gnostic church, and for the first time I saw communion with the body of the divine masculine and the blood of the divine feminine coming together in union to provide perfect harmony within our bodies. And I liked it so much that I wanted to do it today with all of you. And so we're going to have a communion together. And what we're going to do is we're going to embrace the divine masculine. Now, the divine masculine is that new idea of possibility that you have for your life. So I want you to think of something that you want to crucify, something that you want to release and let go of. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take the bread, and that's going to represent the divine masculine. And then you're going to take the divine feminine. Now, the divine feminine, there's always this active mode and receptive mode. Active, receptive, right? But it takes both of those to provide the new thing. You have to have the divine masculine implanted in the divine feminine. The seed is planted in the soil. Whatever it is, whatever that idea that you have to have it implanted in the divine creativity of the universe as it allows itself to nurture that seed within you. so that we're going to have this cranberry grape juice that you're going to drink, and you're going to have a little wafer, and it's going to represent that divine masculine, that new idea of possibility for yourself, and the divine feminine, which is that blood of life that is causing it to grow within you. And you're going to take that on today, and you're going to take on a new sense of beingness as we do communion together. And I wanted to do that because I want each and every one of us to rise strong, to have courage. As Brene Brown says, if we're brave enough, often enough, we will fall. Do you get this? So I'm doing something courageous in my life, and I'm speaking to you and being vulnerable, and there's going to be a time when I fall. Each and every one of you will fall. But the courageous thing is to rise again. And so maybe you're at a time in your life right now, maybe you've actually fallen, maybe you're on the ground right now. And this is an opportunity to take this to show that you've risked falling, and you're going to rise up again. You're going to take it on just like Jesus rose from the grave. You're going to rise back up. You're going to rise again and again and again and again, because this is what life is about. In order for you to live the life of your dreams, you have to have the courage to keep rising strong, to keep rising above, even if you fall, because you're going to fall. Because if you didn't innovate, if you didn't step into the courageousness of trying something new, of being in a new way of being, you never would have discovered all of the fullness of yourself. So I want you to be willing to dare greatly, to say, I'm willing to risk failure. I'm willing to risk doing something new in a new way of being and embodying this new way, even if I fail, because at least I will have tried, and I will become a new person because of it. And I love in this book too, Brene Brown talks about how if we fall in the service of being brave, we can never go back. And the hard thing about living a life of courage is that you're always straddling the old world that you wish you had, right? But then always stepping into the best and the most possible idea, most greatest possible idea for your own life. And so it's kind of like this straddling thing, and it's a scary place to be. But that's the place that I want you to live in. I want you to live into this new standing up and understanding that you got to let go of that old world and step into the new world. So each and every one of us are going to do that today and recognize and know that this is going to transform our lives. I want to invite you to buy this book too. We'll be talking about it all month long. And recognize and know that this is your journey. This is your opportunity. This is you getting to rise up. This is you being able to embody the Christ consciousness. And just like my dad taught me the lesson that because of his death, I am risen anew. That you can have that same opportunity in your life. Because I've left this place, because I have left this job, because I've left this relationship, I am now full and whole in myself. And I'm willing to step into that new self, step into that new way of being. And so each and every one of us is going to commit to doing that today. So I want you to just close your eyes for just a minute, and I want you to think about, what is it that I'm willing to let go of? What aspect of myself do I want to crucify? Do I want to release? Do I want to let go of? And am I willing to take on something new? And if in your heart of hearts the answer is yes, then I want you to imagine that new thing. And think of one word that is encapsulating what that newness is that you're bringing on, that you're having planted into your life today. And when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes.
To start, I would like to also read you a poem from one of my favorite authors, Irish authors, John O'Donoghue. This one is titled New Beginnings. In out-of-the-way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, the beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you were ready to emerge. For a long time it has watched your desire, feeling that emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered. Heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent. Wondered, would you always live like this? Then the delight when your courage kindled and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of the opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you.
Nice. Thank